Now, there's one more form of idolatry that we need to discuss. It's perhaps the most pervasive in our culture today, and that's the idol of self. See, in our modern world, personal autonomy and self-will, those have become forms of idolatry. I mean, we're constantly told, follow your heart, be true to yourself, you do you. I hate that phrase, but you do you. Now, there's a kernel of truth in those sayings. I mean, God has indeed, He's made each one of us unique and calls us to be authentic. But when that's taken to the extreme, this mentality, it can lead us to place our own desires, opinions, or goals above God's will. And Jesus, He addressed this head on, right? In Matthew 16:24-25, He says, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." And this is a direct challenge to the idol of self. See, Jesus is saying that to truly follow Him, we must dethrone ourselves and enthrone Him, right? We have to be willing to set aside our own plans, our own preferences, maybe even our own rights in order to follow His will. I mean, take name it and claim it theology. Again, why would God tell us to deny ourselves, then give us everything that we want? Right? It's so incredibly easy for the idol of self to take over because it's countercultural, isn't it? I mean, in a world that tells us to look out for number one, right? I'm looking out for me, looking out for numero uno. Jesus tells us to die to ourselves. In a culture that says personal fulfillment is the highest good, Jesus says that losing our lives for His sake is the path to truly finding life. The Apostle Paul models this for us wonderfully. In Galatians 2:20, he writes, "I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave Himself for me." I mean, this is the antithesis of self-idolatry. Okay, Paul recognized that true life, true fulfillment comes not from exalting ourselves, but it comes from allowing Christ to live through us. Because we were made to worship. And if we don't worship God, we're going to worship something else. And all too often, that something else winds up being ourselves. I mean, think about like the selfie culture that we live in now, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with taking pictures of yourself and posting them. I mean, I'm filming this video, I'm talking to a camera, filming this video to post online. There's nothing wrong with taking pictures of yourself. But when you become obsessed with curating the perfect online image, and that is your primary concern, then we're constantly seeking, probably the goal is likes and followers and subscribers. When that is our primary focus, is how we look online, how many likes we get, how many followers we get, maybe we're being more concerned with how we appear than who we actually are. And that's a form of self-worship. Or consider this popular phrase is that you're perfect just the way that you are. Again, there's a kernel of truth there. Sure, I mean, God loves us just the way that we are. But if we take this to an extreme, then this attitude can also lead us to resist God's transforming work in our lives. It can make us feel defensive when maybe we're being confronted with our sin, or when we are seeing areas that we need to grow or someone's pointing that out. And the irony here is that when we worship ourselves, we actually diminish ourselves. See, we're created in God's image. We're designed to reflect His glory. When we try to generate our own glory instead of reflecting His, then we end up as really just pale imitations of what we were meant to be.